In today's video, I'm sharing an updated what's on my Google Pixel 9 Pro. Let's get right into it. Okay, friends, I have been getting quite a few DMs and messages and comments asking me to do an updated what's on my phone. And so that is exactly what we're doing in today's video. I realized the last time I did a what's on my Google Pixel phone video, that was 7 months ago. So that totally makes sense why you want an update. But just a spoiler, I don't think there's anything too crazy or new on my phone, but we're gonna go through it anyway. And I think I'm due for a little bit of app cleanup. I tend to download a bunch of different apps and then I end up not using them. And so I like to do a declutter every once in a while and just remove the stuff that I haven't been using. So we'll do that together as well. I should also start by introducing you to my phone. So if you have not met my phone, this is what it looks like. This is the beautiful case that's on the back of it. By the way, this case is from Berga and it's got like a really nice tortoise shell kind of vibe. And it also has this little hooky thing here that you can put your finger through or you can use it as a stand. I got both of them from Berga, which is why they match so perfectly. But the phone itself is the Google Pixel 9 Pro in porcelain, and it's the standard size. It's not the XL size. I know a lot of people do not believe me when I say that because it looks gigantic in my hands. I am just going to remind you, I am a tiny person, so that's why it looks gigantic in my hands. So that is the back of the phone. This is the front of the phone. It does need a bit of cleaning, my apologies, but you're not going to see any of that once I start sharing my screen on the screen. You're going to see it pop up in a second, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so this is what my screen looks like. I apologize for the bodies at the bottom there, but I will explain what that is in a second. This is what my phone looks like, and I will just go through some basic things on the screen. And I should also say, like, I don't know if you can see in the back there, my wallpaper, that is Logan. That is my cat, my 8-year-old cat. One of the two cats that I have, and the other wallpaper slash screen, which is my lock screen, has Riley on it, in case anybody's like, what about Riley? But I have both of them as my wallpapers. But yeah, starting with the far left screen, and I'll just keep moving to the end screens afterward. This far left screen is a Google feed, like a Google News feed, and it shares some information, like relevant information at the top right here. You can see my little icon in the corner. That's because this feed is connected to a Gmail account, and so that I can click into that and see my settings if I wanted to. I'm not gonna do that, but you can see some relevant information at the top here, like the weather in the local area, some scores for basketball, the air quality, and you can actually customize this even further. I don't typically look at this top bar that often, so I don't customize it more than what is there, but I do use this area to look at news articles quite often. I think I look at it at least once or twice a day, and it does regularly refresh and update based off of my interests, based off of my location, or perhaps my search history and things like that. Sometimes it does show me random things, but you do have the option to like these articles, so it will show you more. It will continue to curate as you read and like, and you can also go to that little ellipses and save things, share things. You can also say not interested in that topic, stuff like that. So this is very curated and can get even more curated. I don't know why it would show me something like this. This is definitely not something that I would regularly read about, so I'm just going to hit not interested in that topic. And then that's just an example of what you can do there. You can also undo it if you made a mistake. But yeah, that is the first screen. And then moving on to my main screen. So this is the screen that comes up as soon as I unlock my phone. And you can see I have two gigantic widgets that take up most of the space. There's also this top area where it says the date and the weather that just like, if you click into it, it can either open up your calendar if you click on the date, and it will open up the weather if you click on the weather. And the calendar is connected to Google Calendar, of course, because this is a Google Pixel phone. So that's just basic stuff there. I think you can remove that if you want to. I find it to be very useful to be there, so I keep it there. And then this top widget right here, that is Pinterest. It's so funny that it has The Last of Us right in the center there, but I have my Pinterest widget connected to a particular board. I believe it's my 2025 inspo board, my mood board for the year. And so every single day it will refresh to a set of 3 different images that I have saved in that particular Pinterest board. And I like that because it just keeps me inspired and keeps me staying up to date with that mood board, because you can definitely create a mood board at the start of the year and then completely forget about it. So having that widget keeps me like in the loop with my mood board and all of the things that I aspire to do in this year. So I really find it to be inspirational. And then this widget here, which is kind of inappropriate, I apologize, but that is Google Arts and Culture. So every single day, this will also refresh for a brand new piece of art. It showcases one different piece of art every single day. Sometimes it's traditional art like painting, oil, pastel, whatever. And then sometimes it's like sculptures and stuff like that. It's just something new every single day, and you can tap into it and it will share information about that piece of art for the day. It does take a couple minutes or seconds to load, but yeah, that is the featured art for today, and you can read more about it. You all know that I am an artist, so that is something that's very interesting and entertaining and inspirational for me. So I like to keep that on my main home feed, even though the one for today is probably not the best to be showing on YouTube, but whatever, it is what it is. And then what else I have on my home screen are a couple of folders. So this folder right here has a lot of social media apps. I have a ton of social media apps. I don't think I need to explain any here. I am not active on Blue Sky or X, but it's there because of my 9 to 5 in case I need to access it for that purpose. And then this folder over here just has like some health/wellness related things. I have Practice Better, which is like a food tracker app. I used it back when I used to see a nutritionist very regularly, and I still like using it, so it's in there. And then I have my Aura Ring app in there as well, which you will know is one of my favorite apps. It's one of my go-to apps for my morning routine as well. So I like to keep that front and center. And then at the very bottom, right before that Google search bar right here, you can see that there are some static apps that do not move no matter what screen you're on. And the far left one is WhatsApp. I did get questions quite a bit ago asking me if WhatsApp was my main texting application, and I use WhatsApp mainly for some group chats and to text Ian. So it is my main texting platform because I text Ian more than anyone else, but I also use the regular messages app on the phone as well. And I also use that for group chats and random chats as well. I feel like WhatsApp is my main one though because I text Ian from it. And then the folder next to it has more social media stuff, but it's more specific to photos and short form videos where I'm posting very, very frequently in comparison to the other apps. And so this has Instagram, this has TikTok, this has like CapCut, all sorts of photo and editing programs that I use on a case-by-case basis, but sometimes on a more regular basis. For example, Snapseed and VSCO, I do not use often anymore. I used to use those frequently, but I do not. It's just there for a case-by-case basis, whereas CapCut is something that I use every day. That is kind of like how I splice together my video clips for short-form content. So again, I like to keep that front and center. I also have this Edits app from Instagram that I haven't really played in quite yet, but I downloaded it to check it out. And then the app right in the center is Gmail. The app right next to that is Google Chrome. And then the folder next to that is a bunch of security stuff. I've mentioned this in the past, but I like to have my security stuff front and center as well for safety purposes. So I have Nest. Nest is my it's Google powered, but it is my doorbell. It's a smart doorbell. Wise are all of my security cameras around the house. Neighbors is a neighbor app so that I can see what's going around in the neighborhood. It's mostly like lost pets majority of the time. Nextdoor is another neighbors app where, just an additional thing to neighbors. I like neighbors more than Nextdoor. Sometimes Nextdoor can get a little spammy. And then Life 360 is a tracking app. I use that to track Ian, and Ian uses it to track me, so we know where we are at all times in case of an emergency. And then swiping to the next screen, you can see it's just all widgets. So the top left widget right over here, that is Google Calendar, but it's set in an agenda view so I can see things on a very large scale and an agenda basis, whereas, other ways you can look at Google Calendar is an actual calendar, which I'll show you in a second. So I like to see that in that view so I can very quickly look at it without needing to do an extra step of going into a calendar, going into the day, and seeing what's up for that day. So I like to have that there, and it doesn't need to be too big for me. I like the small view. Next to it, right over here, that is Google Keep, which I have talked about so many times, especially recently in my Stress Less, Live More series. Google Keep is essentially a digital to-do list, and I use it for so many different things. As you can see, this top list that I have there is a random to-do list, and I have a bunch of other things underneath it. But again, another really quick and easy way to reference my to-do list, and you can see plus signs for both of these widgets, so I can add things straight from these widgets as opposed to clicking into them and then adding something. So it is very convenient to have these widgets. And then I have this gigantic widget at the bottom, which is Notion. And I have it set to show the recent boards that I have been using in Notion, which just makes sense for me because most of the time when I'm going into this widget, it's to pull up something that I most recently did. Say, for example, I needed to look at my little script that I have for YouTube, and I most recently did it, but I want to pull it on my phone, pull it up on my phone as opposed to bringing out my laptop or something like that. I can really pull it up here, and it's just on my phone, and it's very easy, again, convenient. And again, those hovering apps are still there. And then the last screen that I have is a calendar view of Google Calendar. So like I was mentioning here with the agenda, I like to look at this as a day-to-day kind of view, but when I look at this calendar here, I can see things on a monthly view, on a weekly view. You can see a lot of stuff in here. For privacy reasons, I set it to February and not recent time or future time, but this is generally what I look at, and I can see a bunch of different things in here on a very wide scale view, which I think is really helpful for me depending on whatever task I'm looking at or looking for, such as like birthdays, anniversaries, weekend plans, stuff like that. And so those are all of my screens. I will now jump in very quickly. Oh, I should also mention this hovering thing underneath the static apps at the bottom. I had clicked into it before, but that is essentially Google search. So I can search google.com right from there. I can do it through text. So if I tap on the bar, it pulls up the keyboard so that I can do searches, but I can also do it by voice. I can also do it by Google Lens. I do use Google Lens quite often. I don't really use the Google Voice. And I should also mention, if I hold down on the power button, I'm not going to say anything until I swipe off, but that essentially pulls up Gemini, which is a smarter version, a more intuitive conversational version of the Google search thing that's down here. So it's kind of funky to have both, but they do feel very distinct in my mind, so it also does make sense. But just a heads up, you can hold the power button and that pulls up Gemini. You can talk to Gemini, you can type in Gemini, you can do whatever the heck you want to do in Gemini. And now let me swipe up so that I can show you all of the apps that I have here. Oops, sorry. I have a lot of apps. I'm not going to go through, I keep typing wrong things. I'm not going to go through every single one of these apps, but I'm just going to very quickly see if I have anything that I need to clean up in here and just show you an overview of what it looks like. So at the very top, you can see the Google search bar that is at the bottom here. When you swipe up, it goes to the top, so you can still search from google.com. You can see it says search web and more from here. You can search for apps here. So let's say I'm searching for CapCut. I can search it through there. Or I can literally search the web from there. Again, it's just there for you to search anything that you want, but you can search in your phone as well up there, including files5 you wanted to find a file. And then at the very top, you can see that there's like a line in between some of these apps. These top 5 apps are the most recent apps that I have clicked into. So if you want to grab an app that's not necessarily on your homepage, but you most recently went into it, you can go there, you can reference there. And then again, I do need to do some cleanup. I will also make note of some apps that I haven't talked about in the past as I go through this. I think one of them is Backmarket. This is an app that you can sell tech through. It's very exclusive, like they only accept certain types of products, but I do plan on selling my MacBook, so that's why I downloaded it. and I do think that it's really nice, seamless, easy, much less stressful than eBay sometimes, especially when we're talking about tech. I have Blue Sky. Again, I don't use Blue Sky, but I have it there for my 9 to 5. Box is like OneDrive. It's just a cloud kind of area, and that is also for my 9 to 5. Let's see what else. I downloaded Chewy because I think the Chewy app is actually really fantastic, and Ian usually maintains the Chewy account, but I decided to download it as well in case I want to find some things for my pets. Let's see what else I have. Cosmos, I think I've mentioned before. It's very similar to Pinterest, but it's much more aesthetic and there's no ads. DJI Mimo, I don't really use this app, but it's an app that you need to have and connect to the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which is what I'm filming on right now, by the way, if you were wondering. Again, I have Edits. This is like CapCut, but for Instagram. They created their own app very recently. I don't really use it. I've tested it once, as you can see here, but I would love to test it a little bit more. So more to come, I guess. If I find it to be interesting, I'll shout it out in another video like this. I'm not seeing any. Oh, food recall. I felt like this was very interesting and useful to have these days. So I do have this. It does send me push notifications whenever there is a recall. So I do highly recommend it. It's a very basic app, but it does what it needs to do, and I appreciate that. I have Libro FM. This is also for my 9 to 5, but Libro FM is a really great space, an alternative, or honestly, I don't think it's an alternative. I think it's a main space for audiobooks. So I do love Libro FM. Let's see what else. I feel like I have mentioned all of these other apps. The Okta, OKTA Verify, that's like an authenticator app. I use that for my 9 to 5. Pet Desk is the app that I use to communicate and schedule and just handle anything in terms of my pets and going to the vet. Like, it's connected to my vet's office. So that's a new one. Let's see what else. I actually don't have that many apps to delete. I thought I would have to delete a ton because I feel like I don't use that many apps on the regular, but I do use these for case-by-case bases. So I actually don't need to delete anything. Let's see what else. I don't know if I mentioned the Reel before, but this is like a consignment shop. It's like Poshmark, but it's for like luxury items. I have that in there. Never actually like purchased from there, but I do like to browse every once in a while. Let's see. Too Good to Go. This is a really, I don't know what that was, but this is a really cool app to, I guess, pay like a really small price. You can see that some things are like $3.99, $4.99 for like goodie bags from local areas, local restaurants, cafes, grocery stores even. And you pay a tiny fee and they give you like a goodie bag, a surprise goodie bag of things that they were going to chuck at the end of the day, but you get to pay a very small amount for all of the stuff that they planned on chucking. And you can get like a bag of like 10 pastries for $4. I downloaded this because I now work a hybrid schedule and I go into Midtown, and there are so many incredible cafes around there, but it can get really pricey if I pay full price. So I plan on using that to get like little goodie bags from local cafes whenever I'm in the office so I can have snacks for the rest of the week. Vestaire is another consignment kind of app, very similar to the Reel. I have never purchased from there. And I think that's it. I have X. I don't use X. I don't have an X account, again, for my 9 to 5. And I think that's truly it. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and end the video off there. Hopefully that was interesting, not just through the apps and the way that I set up my home screens, but it was also interesting in terms of how the phone performs and moves and the buttons that you can touch and things that you can customize within the Google Pixel devices, at least for the Google Pixel 9 Pro. I know I'm going to get questions on whether or not I like the phone. I do have a pros and cons brand new review of the Google Pixel 9 Pro on my channel, so you can definitely check that out. But long story short, yes, I do love the phone. I still love the phone. It's still performing incredibly for me. I don't really have cons for it aside from the ones that I mentioned in that video, so do check that out if you're interested. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope it was fun. I hope it was cool hanging out with me for a little bit, and I will talk to you in the next video.